All right, everybody. It is the weekly Sunday morning collab on the Think Collab. And we're just waiting for everybody to come in. We've got me, Bridgette Dolgoff, and we've got Dr. Lenny in the house.
Howdy,
And,
howdy.
and that's what we're doing. Um, well, maybe we should, since we're waiting for Mike to pop in, maybe we'll just talk about consciousness, right?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about the energy that goes into consciousness and where that energy comes from. And I'm at the conclusion now that maybe the water is the conscious entity within us, and that the brain might act as a hard drive and the heart as a power supply, but that it's the water interacting with all the organic things in our body that actually generates the energy frequencies that are required to create consciousness. Funny thing, I no longer really can buy into the science program that we were taught in school. And so, in its absence, I have to go back to firsthand information that I know and experience. And I've done enough work with chemistry to know that I can compare things to the chemistry that I understand and see if that works or not works. And so, basic physics tells us that E equals mc squared, Einstein's equation, but that c squared just seems to be an elaborate fudge factor. And when you get into frequency and the speed of light, you realize that light might travel at the same frequency or at the same speed no matter what the frequency. That would have to create time. And so time as we know it is not at all as it's been explained to us. And the concept of clock time is entirely different from the universal time of consciousness.
I was just taking a sip of coffee. Well, that's kind of like what Victor and Mike and those guys are doing, right? Blowing the doors off time that we've been taught that it's to be. I mean, even calendar time, even year, what year it
Yeah.
is.
Calendar time and clock time are constructs that keep us all interacting with each other at the same times. And it's like we set up to do the collab this morning at a certain time. That way we can coordinate our beings to all be in the room at the same time. We see how well that worked. But
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the thing. It's like it seems like the more conscious you become, the more you run your own time, your own, your own inner clockworks.
we really do. And now this 5G that they're introducing and rolling over us with seems to be a way of once again manipulating time into shorter and shorter parcels so that, well, energy and frequency are related directly and inverse to the wavelength, so that at shorter wavelengths you get higher energies. And so microwaves are really, really short wavelengths, and so they have very high energies. And how those energies interact with us in the body is really what we'd like to know, defined before they roll it out, not roll it out for huge corporate profits without having done the studies on how it affects our health. But then again, most of the studies on how things affect our health are done by universities under controlled circumstances so that they can only report the results that their masters, the people paying for the research, want them to report. And so I don't think we have a really good way of exchanging knowledge through the system, we have to come up with our own ways of exchanging knowledge outside the system. And that's really what our Think Collab is about. We're thinking outside the box and then creating geometric structures around what we're thinking to see how things work.
Yeah, I think yeah, I think
You
that,
know,
yeah,
I know you're into Steiner. Have you done any work on Reich, Wilhelm Reich, the person who,
Oregon.
yeah, Orgone?
Yeah,
Uh,
but the thing is like all that stuff works. I did do a huge study on William Reich, and the one thing that like I even had a friend of mine who was in the process of building a rain machine, right? Oregon Rainmaker. And we were messing around with building Oregon, pyramids and stuff like that using polymers.
mhm.
So you make the crystals and stuff like that. And
Metal shavings and all sorts
yeah, the thing that I
of
learned about it was, well, originally, so I went past William Reich's work and I went into some different kind of work, and it turns out that mountains, and now we know for sure because of Roger Spur's work, that a lot of the mountains are, dead giants, right? That would have all these minerals and all this stuff in their bodies that's decomposing in the mountains, and then on top of it, what their bodies are leaving behind over a period of time, gold, diamonds, things of that nature. But it turns out that mountains are actually the highest level of Oregon energy and that they radiate. And for some reason, Mount Fuji has the highest, I don't know, not radiation, but how it radiates out around it. Um,
aura, we might call it.
yeah, I mean, I don't really know that there's a word for it. Um, but it actually, um, radiates out super far and wide. So um, the so anyway, they've, I guess, tested it, or they kind of understand some of this stuff. I'm not really sure how they've, come to some of these determinations about it. Oh, Karen's typing. But so that's like the highest level of Oregon energy. So, how do we, so we go back to the Starfort thinking, right? And some of the Starforts, they didn't use stone or anything like that, right? Some of the Starforts, they actually used plant material to design, right? So some of the Starforts have like trees planted in the certain area to make the Starfort designs other than stone and whatever else that they were using. So what if, the trees like Steiner, some of these people like Steiner, talks about in his work with like dealing with antennas or antlers or horns, and how these things um, send and receive, information from the cosmos, from, basically coming in from certain type of beings, that a lot of these beings have never had bodies, but the tree is like an antenna. So here we are, you know, burning everything down and deforesting it. We're changing how the Oregon energy is getting its, military papers of how it's supposed to operate, because it's losing the trees, which are antennas that help with its signal, or bringing in, cosmic energy into the ground to help keep the Oregon energy radiating well, right? So I think about I think about a lot of stuff like that. But the one thing that Williams Reich's work that I did study was that I came across, which I'm astonished that a lot of other people who haven't done stories in Oregon energy. Oh, I guess I don't have Karen in the chat. Hold on, let me see if I can go find. Um, oh, maybe Karen wasn't talking to us. No. I'm just trying to see where she went because I saw her typing, and then
That's all okay.
yeah,
There's something about what
but the,
Reich said with Orgone energy that he balanced the organic and the inorganic, and the inorganic are the metals and the different things that our current system tells us are not alive, but anything that generates a frequency is alive, and certainly the elements that we call metals generate frequencies.
so
And
this
so
so
I
this is
think the entire planet is alive. Okay,
well,
go
yeah.
ahead.
Well, and Steiner calls it. First, I want to go back to William Reich, and then I'll talk about what Steiner talks about with minerals, right? Because I'm taking this course that has his
A
work
course
and
in minerals or a course in miracles?
no course in Steiner's work in minerals. I mean, it's part of the course that we're learning. Oh, Karen says she's hung up with other work. Okay, so anyway, so the thing I saw about Williams Reich's work was that it's not compatible. Orgone, forced. I'm going to call it forced Orgone energy, which is like you make it yourself. You bring all of those and you bring all those elements together and then into one thing. So they're not kind of more naturally occurring, they're more forced. But anyway, in the studies that he made, he had a box, right, that he put people in and they would spend time in it, that was laced with Oregon energy so that they could help heal their cancer and whatever else. But he did do studies with it. He did do scientific research with it. And what his research showed was that at least forced Oregon energy is not compatible with nuclear radiation. And when they were combined, they exploded like a detrimental explosion. So if you took like a radioactive particle and you tossed it into the, Oregon box that he developed, like a really dangerous explosion happened. And so the one thing I took away from that is um, that obviously, Oregon energy creates life, nuclear radiation is death, and the death and the life are not combinable, nor do they like each other's space at all. And you think about a lot of people that are now, dabbling in Oregon energy and maybe on the West Coast, and we still have nuclear fallout. We still have nuclear fallout, hot particles coming down from the sky, from Fukushima, and also now from like the LA fire that was last year, right? Because the radiation levels are exploding along California, and they're saying that this is because of when the Woolsey fire, burned the, you know, shut down nuclear plant down there. I think it was Rocketdyne, Santa Ana, um, but it burned the whole thing down. They never cleaned it up. It's one of the worst, nuclear sites that have been left. And now all that ash is, hovering in the sky, and it's starting to kind of like rain down. So, yeah. So now, you think about people dabbling with the Oregon energy, and you think about the potential of how explosive that situation could be if the nuclear radioactive ash hot materials actually interacts with the Oregon energy. So I think about that, but I also think about like the mineral thing where Steiner talks about the minerals have the same consciousness we did when we lived on the old Saturn, And so the Earth that we have now was the old Saturn, right? And we lived as energetic beings and we were developed like energetic beings. And so right now we're working on Earth right now, minerals um, have the same consciousness that we did when we were this certain kind of energy being long before like we became humans. And so we're working with the reflective and the warmth. And so it's interesting because I went out and I did a Steiner meditation out in an area where there's like a lot of granite and stuff like that, and it was pretty trippy because I realized like Steiner is kind of right, because what we reflect out, the minerals, what we are sending out, kind of, I don't want to say we're like the highest being or whatever on earth, but because we're the most conscious, right? So whatever we're sending out actually hits the minerals and they actually reflect it back. That's what they do. So it was kind of a trip to kind of see that. So no matter what kind of shape or form that you put the minerals in, if you're not super conscious about how you're treating them, even ingesting them properly, then you could have more trouble with them than not, because they need, part of how they work is the reflective nature of the humans, because we're helping them to evolve so that their energy self eventually will be a human form, right? Because that's what creates form, right? Is carbon. And carbon is part of the mineral world. But anyway, so this, the Steiner course that I'm taking is pretty, I know it's pretty out there. it's pretty it's pretty crazy, but yeah, so that's kind of like, you know, that kind of in a nutshell. So anyway, Mike, hey Michael, are you
Hey,
there? Hey, so everybody had weird timelines today. I think Victor's recovering from the radio show yesterday. But it's me and Lenny, and we'd love to talk to you about some of your, theories. And if you have any pictures you can add, that would be great.
all you really have to do is look up Marvel's Nowhere. That is sort of the basic where I started from. I was watching Guardians of the Galaxy, the Marvel movie, and they visit Nowhere, which is a really big skull in the middle of space, belonging to a celestial titan. And the whole reason this whole train of thought came about is because everybody was debating flat Earth, globe Earth, really big Earth. Like, how can I make all of these people happy? Well, if you fit all of that inside of a skull, it all works, doesn't it?
Mental construct Earth
If
inside
you
the
have
skull.
that celestial titan type of idea, you could see Earth as a circuit board inside of that skull. And the dome that all these flat Earth people see is the inside of the skull dome, painted blue.
And then so everything's a projection.
Yes, we create reality as we go, right?
Or we create nothing as we go. It's
Ah,
just an old projection of your stuff, right?
true, true.
Well, reality is nothing then, if you
So this
follow
goes,
that line, and
yeah, so
nothing is real, so there's nothing to get hung about.
yeah, there you go. Well, and Steiner talks a lot about that, about how everything outside of, humans, because of the certain kind of consciousness that it contains, is reflective. All right. So there's this word that's constantly used, mirror. He talks about how mirroring and reflective over and over and over again. I'm taking this 5-month course on the esoteric science that Steiner wrote, which is his kind of scientific body of work for anthroposophy, right? So, yeah, lately in my world, this thing just keeps coming back up over and over and over again. And obviously, Mike, you blew my mind with the circuit boards maps. You destroyed me. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
We get destroyed every instant and recreated every instant. And so reality is just the parceling of these instants into each other. And what do they say now? We flick on and off over 600,000 times per second. It's a frequency matter.
Reflective matter. No. All right. So anyway, so tell us some of your other thoughts. I know there's some places you can't go with some of your skull thoughts, but tell us some of your other thoughts around that area, or talk to us about some of the stuff that you've been working on as well. You know, I know you're always working on stuff.
How's that for a visualization? I just shared the screen on Skype.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see it. Is that's a being, or that's a mountain, or that's a being mountain?
It's a remnant of a being. It's the skull that's floating inside space. And my idea was that if you take, you can see the mouse pointer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you take one of these circuit boards and you put it here, sort of, you got the dome of the skull. And all you need to do is paint that inside blue. And your astronauts can fly out. And you can paint them a pretty picture of Earth on the outside and show them that. There you go, that's Earth.
Well, you know, there's like some crazy stories. Roger Spurd was telling me this story about, you know, there's complications, right, with everybody and some of their work, especially when we're not operating together, right, learning from each other. But he was talking about how that there's like some like stories that talk about how, you know, basically the flood came or deluge came, was that, you know, there was a huge Titan, you know, basically woman who was standing on the moon and gave birth, and that all of that water, you know, hit the earth for deluge. So you hear this stuff over and over and over again, right? The Titan.
The Titan is definitely a returning theme. I don't really pay much attention to Roger because he just keeps on going about how everything is really, really big. And then he tries to fit it on a globe that does not fit that size of life, period.
Right. But what if, you know, Earth was a skull left over from some kind of Titan floating in whatever it's floating in?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because they say like asteroids and comets have the same exact physical makeup of humans.
Yeah, that's where the story "we all come from space and we are all made of stars" comes from, right?
Right.
You know, if you look at space in another way, they say that matter is made up of empty space. But what if the molecular level that we're dealing with at the level of water is actually also the level that we're looking at in the sky? And that each of the Earths that we have live in a size of scale where it's common to the humans on that Earth to see things at that scale. But physics on this world are a function of the scale, and at every different world, they change subtly. But certain things like the phi ratio and pi remain the same, and that's consistent throughout worlds from world to world. So essentially, those microbes that Bridgette and I were talking about last week when we were talking about compost are like humans in their world. But if you can imagine what a microbe world might look like, with pseudocontinents similar to the ones that we have here. Yeah, that looks like North and South America as pseudocontinents. And so it's one of those different things that fractal. It's a
Even if you look at the Starforts, that gives an indication of how small we really are. As in going back to putting things in a reference of scale. I mean,
so let's say humans exist at every scale and that we're the variables.
This
and
is the car part, Lenny.
Different things are real, but we as humans being variable can come to cognizance on any scale that we focus on. And so now we're working on 2, 3, maybe 4 scales simultaneously and forcing our concept of Earth into that, as opposed to looking at what we're learning by these functions of scale and recreating the concept as you're doing.
It just shocks me, like, how everything just looks like a circuit board. And, we were talking before you got on, Mike, but about, the starforts that were built with more of nature, and less rock and stone and stuff like that, and different kinds of energy. And I just see, like, at one point in time we had like natural circuit boards, like all these trees and all these different things, are like natural circuit boards, and now it's being overprinted with digital circuit boards, which is like concrete and all of this stuff. And you can see how it's like but one of the courses I took in phenomenology, I took this phenomenology course at Rudolf Steiner College, like, I don't know, 10 years ago. In one of the classes we did a study, and it goes back to also what some of my native teachers have taught me, which is like everything's the same. You just have to really see it. There isn't anything new and there's nothing different. Like, it's the same, and you have to like just pay attention to it, and you'll see it. You'll start to see it that way. So, we did this study on birds, and then we did, study on water and fish and stuff, because we also in Steiner was friends with Victor Schallenberger, and we also study Weston Price's work. But anyway, birds are just fish, right? They have holes.
They're flying through the water.
Right, they're flying through the air water, right? Or we could call it, or the water air, or whatever. And the fish are doing the same thing. And the mineral, the water or the air, propels it. You're developed to be flown, or you're developed to be swammed. And you have these holes, and so we had all these bird skeletons where we were really studying that all birds have like a hole of some matter, and then they have their wings are, just like scales. And science has talked about how birds are dinosaurs, that their feathers are reptile scales. So there is no difference, really. It's just, I think that maybe we have this mindset that, and to think about it, we developed in water for how long? The first part of our experience here.
9 months, which translates to about 80 years as a fetus, as a human developing.
Right. So, I think maybe sometimes it's just our mental construct that we can't be underwater for long periods of time.
Yeah, that's why I keep saying babies have the biggest trip of their life. Like, literally, they come out of there and it's like light. Hey, what happens here? It's like an experience on acid.
Yeah, an acid trip where you're suddenly delivered into a strange new world, and now you have to breathe air instead of water.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, that's why babies too, they look amphibious. We look like pollywogs when we first start. A brain and a spine. Yeah, that's all we are.
That's true. It's definitely true. I mean, even semen looks like that.
Yeah, it's serious.
It looks like everything else at different levels of the scale, but we just give it different names and use different concepts to explain it.
Isn't that what we always talk about, is that they change they change the rules of dialogue, and by changing the definition from here to there, they cause confusion in the language and understanding to
So now
create
we
separatism of everything.
so now we've got a world where up is down, top is bottom, and charmed is certainly strange.
What are all those spots, Mike? Are those all star forts
Hmm.
in that whole area? They're like overlapped each other.
Every star you see is a star fort.
Do you think there were multiple civilizations that made them, or maybe that was just what
No,
area is
I
that?
honestly think it's a remnant of one big. This is Western Europe. This Eastern Europe here.
See, I don't have the share on my screen.
So you don't have the
I had it earlier, but now I don't. I just
Let's
have a
see if
blank.
I can
So do you think it was
uh,
the hub of where
rest.
people came for power? I mean, to have that many star forts.
Does it work now, Lenny?
Yes, now I see it.
There you go. Sorry, what was that, Bridget?
So why do you think that there's so many star forts in that area? Do you think it was like the hub of commerce worldwide?
No, I think they've been destroyed everywhere else.
Oh, and you have cities that
Or
have been kind of built
I
around
just
them.
haven't found them yet. That's another thing. I've only been doing this for a year.
I've only been doing this for a year. I'm just a baby.
There's many more to come. There's many more to come.
Actually, what you find is that as you gain experience, you gain it by following Fibonacci. And so after a year, you get back to a second year that's just like the first year from a different perspective. And then once you've got 2 years under your belt, that second year after that really is when you start moving and it expands to 3, 5, 8. And then all of
Hmm.
us, things really start to take off. So
Yeah,
it's just a matter of
that's my reasoning.
time.
That's my reasoning. Just keep plugging away at it because there's so many more to be found still. If you
So
take old maps from Eastern Europe and you see the amount of them, I'm far
so
from done.
I was kind of surprised because Reno seems like such a small, like insignificant place here. But I was downtown and I was driving around, and so I decided to look at pre-mud flood buildings just to see if we actually have some. And there it was, the city courthouse, except for they've built onto it, right? But the small piece of it that was original has a dome, right? It has all the, marble outside, things that hold up, the front and the stone, like the original stone. And so then I had to look below and I could see that the base, pre-mud flood base was there and that it was kind of so far deep, the first floor in my, now that you had to actually go up to it and look because they actually had to dig out circle like holes in order for the windows down there, you know what I mean, so that the windows weren't enclosed in on. So it was very interesting because I thought to myself,
Is
is
it
there
this, Bridget?
any place, is there any place that they haven't been, or you know what I mean, wasn't developed? Yeah, it would be downtown on Virginia. That might be it. Should be like right on the main road on Virginia, downtown. No, that's the Pioneer. It's close to that. It might be across the street. That big, that's the Pioneer Theater that you saw, the big domey thing, which is which is going to be kind of strange because it's right across the street. So right across the street from that, say north on the map, that's there it is right there. See it?
Yeah.
So you can see that front part, that's all original, but the back part is not original. And so I was shocked. And then I was shocked to look at, see the Pioneer Theater, like what the hell is that amplifying with the Pioneer Theater across the street, you know, with that dome and the color and all the stuff, because it all like from the air, it all points towards that building. So there's the Pioneer Theater. It's kind of a weird thing. It's been around a really long time. And it's, you know, it's where a lot of the stuff goes on for art. But it's just kind of weird how it was built right across the street from the only mud flood building. There you go. The only mud flood building we have in the whole area. Pre-mud flood building.
Oh yeah, look at the.
Oh yeah, he says. Oh yeah. No, but it just shocked me because
Oh,
I
but just look
just
at the site, the
yeah,
windows.
yeah. I mean, it was, you know, it just kind of shocked me that we actually still had one, or we had something that, you know, and of course it's the courthouse, you know, it's the main courthouse.
Where's
Right.
Victor when you need him?
I know. Where's Victor when you need him? But anyway, it
You
just,
know,
you know,
I think that we see this in so many places all over the place that there must have been some other type of structure that wasn't made out of rock, granite, stone type of thing that also created Starfort images, but doesn't have the residual. So that maybe the thing is that everything in that age was based on Starforts.
yeah. So hey, Mike, go over to go on the map would be go east. So, and then you're going to see a big casino called the GSR. It's the largest casino we have. It's huge. It's on Mill Street. So yeah, go on the map. If you scroll north, yeah, Mill Street, GSR. There you go. Now, if you can get a clear hit of the side of the building, the tower, well, there's the water. See the water? This is like a pharaoh kingdom here. This is like, you know, the way that it's built. I'm going to show you some stuff about Reno. So yeah, go to the side view of the casino, up the tower. That's the tower right there. Do you see how this is the color of a lot of this is like the color mirror image of a lot of the that I've read from Egypt, that the cornerstones of the top of the pyramid would have been this copper color. Okay, look at the emblem on the side here. Can you rotate it just a little bit more so we can look at that emblem all the way up? So there's 33 stars right there that are together, diamonds, right? 33 diamonds. They at night they light up in red. So you've got the Freemasons and the Templars. Then if you look at the glyph up there, it's the sun glyph, which is the emblem of the pharaohs. And then if you look at the GSR inside, the G deals with the Freemasons, right? So you have all the symbols there, and this is the largest, you know,
No,
pyramid. Well,
don't
there you
do
go.
that, Google.
So this is the largest pyramid in the area. So when I tell people, and they've built actual casino pyramids in Las Vegas because we're the home of the international Illuminati cabal. They're all working together here. And then they have a waterway.
Oh God.
They're like, don't talk about it. So then what happens is now inside, when you go into this front area, somebody was telling me there's like a lot of weird, and people wouldn't notice them as Egyptian type stuff, but you know, there's definitely some stuff there that indicates. Recently, the waterway that's right there by the GSR, which, you know, they kind of lied about. If you go the other way, there's the waterway, but recently they changed all the different things on the waterway. It's been like a little golf platform where you could shoot golf balls, but the things in the water, they have islands. And up until recently, the islands actually you could hit and win like a free course if you could get a hole in one, but the islands represented different parts of the world, you know, like that you could win that trip to go there. And up until recently, they all had like palm trees on them, you know, like dealing with the pharaohs kind of stuff. And then what is more crazier about it?
That's just very weird.
What?
Wow.
Is it weird? I know. And then what's more weird about it is if you go, so on all of the exits and entrees to the freeway in Reno and the whole area, we have mining and animal artwork, right? We have native animals and we have mining stuff and stuff from that period that's artwork. Well, if you go down, okay, see this circle thingy here? Right by the freeway, you'll see a circle thingy. There you go. That has just been installed. And so it's so far off the charts
It's a little
because it makes,
swastika, isn't it?
yeah, it makes absolutely no sense to anybody because all of the artwork that's usually on the freeway entrances and exits all have to do with mining and animals. So now we have the sun glyph, right? We have these starfort weird thingies poking out. We have a swastika, and also, yeah, it's pretty crazy. But it's just what it says is like we're here, right? So watching that guy, Dr. Haras, the guy from Europe who is, part of the family and got his, history degree, and watching all of his stuff, he says that when they do things like that you have to look in the vicinity because they're here. They're telling all the other people in the underground societies that this is where we're at, right? So if you're flying over, you're driving by, however you're getting there, we're here because
Yep.
it doesn't make any sense. But see how it's like 1 block away from the GSR. I've been wanting to do an actual go out and do
Actually
like,
has a.
yeah, exactly. It has a point to it. And so when I tell people, and look at it's almost a pentagon. Look at the water. It's almost a pentagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look at that. You see that kind of in a starfort, don't you? That waterway. Look at that. And people laugh at me all the time because they think that I'm crazy, but I'm not crazy.
No,
So
that's perfectly fine. You're among friends. We're all crazy here.
you're
Yeah.
perfectly okay. But isn't that
Hunter
just incredible?
Thompson once Hunter S. Thompson once said, "When the going gets weird, the weird turn pro."
The conspiracist turned factualist. Yeah, but yeah, so that's what we deal with here. That's what I'm dealing with here. Um,
Oh, it's you got another one of these in San Diego. And it's so old, it's not even funny.
really? Is it at Balboa Park? I used to spend a lot of time there too. It's weird. It's a weird place, Balboa Park.
Let's see. I have to look this up. It's a naval training center.
Oh
Hey,
yeah, it's on Coronado Island, I bet.
this could be a new form of geocaching for people. Go explore
There you
the
go.
Tartarian buildings, and as long as we can have
Oh,
people find Google Earth and have Mike do some training on how to locate things, we can have all sorts of on the ground people go out, take pictures, and submit them
Yeah.
back to us as part of our Think Collab.
wow, look at that.
Well, if you're in San Diego,
Oh, they won't let you on that base.
and you have access to the base.
No, I used to see them come running down the beach when I was in Coronado Island. I was living in a small ashram in San Diego, Coronado Island, and then the military guys would come running on the beach every morning.
So, why do you think they changed the meaning of the swastika and pinned it on Nazi Germany? What's hiding behind the meaning of that symbol? Because obviously the
It's
symbol's been in use way longer than
good
the
fortune and progress, right?
right.
So how old is the swastika in your guys' study? Do you know, Mike, or do you have that information?
I haven't, but we have this wonderful tool called the internet. In English, please, for our viewers. Origins, swastika, English. Thank you. A symbol of divinity and spirituality in Indian religions. In
So
the Western
everybody.
world, it was a symbol of auspiciousness and good luck until the 1930s, when it became a feature of Nazi symbolism.
So let's just say it's
Okay.
a symbol that they don't want us to use to procreate or conjure good things. They want us. They want it
Well,
to be. They want us to stay away from it.
it's a fourfold symmetry, and there must be something about the fourfold symmetry that they want to keep people in the duality world. They don't want people to see fourfold symmetry.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what we use in my Native American work, right? The medicine wheel is the fourfold. It's the four directions, the four seasons. It's the four elements, right? And then how we draw it with a plus sign with a circle around it. And there are significant ways that you have to draw it.
What are
You
we
always.
looking at in this picture, Mike?
A swastika on the Snoddelef stone from the 9th century.
The Stolif stone. Is that what you said?
Snoddelef.
Snobelef.
There you go, Snoddelef stone.
Okay, what's a Snobelef stone?
I don't know.
What scale is it on?
I'm not all knowing.
Well, a lot of these, I'm going to call them sigils. A lot of these also, some of these, symbols can go back to sigils. And sigil magic's been going on for a long time where you can develop your own sigil to create, whatever you want. You want a little bit more money, you want a little bit more fame, you want a relationship. And there's like a whole practice on how to create them. And it's interesting too. I wish I could do um, so I'm not very good with the share screen, but there are angel, maybe Mike can look them up while he's there, but angel sigils. And so archangel sigils, but there you go. So there's lots of different kinds of sigils that are been used to conjure different type of angels, good beings, dark beings, for a long period of time. And so then you can see like the different, look at how complicated some of those sigils are for the archangels. Yeah, you see the archangels and there's pretty big. See how intricate some of those sigils are? And those are the sigils that basically represent the name of that being. And I'm still on the fence whether archangels are good beings or bad beings because I know a lot about all this stuff. So, and I'm not a proponent of any kind of conjuring by any means because you conjure something, you're not going to be able to get rid of it. But yeah, isn't that kind of an interesting thing? And then also you have where they correlate. But there is very ancient, like Christian type traditions, even Steiner kind of talks about them, that have a lot of this information kind of in knowledge. And so, only if you're, ordained as a priest in certain kind of, so then it brings a whole new level to, when you go to church and you're drinking someone's blood and you're eating someone's flesh, I tell people if you're doing that at church, you're involved with satanic ritual. I mean, because where is it ever okay to eat another person or drink their blood? you know, in the
Yeah, it
church.
doesn't come across as something good, but hey, it does happen.
It does happen. But they're dealing with a lot of these things. So, the I look at like the Nazi symbol or the four-sided whatever, goes back longer than we know. And what is it attached to? Because obviously there's it invokes something, right? But what is it? mean, look at money. Money is one giant bunch of sigil magic, you know. Um,
Yeah, the
thing.
symbolism on money worldwide is like,
Yeah. I mean, have you guys seen that? So, this will blow you away. I was looking at money and I came across the $100 Iraqi dinar, and it has the hoofing Anunnaki beast on it. I almost fell over. Like, just put it out there like it's no big deal. Oh yeah, it's just
Well,
I mean,
I have
they
looked
might
at
have
some of the
removed it.
dinar
I
that
tried to
I
go
have,
back.
but not in detail recently. I'll have to go back and look at some of the dinar we're packing and figure out what sort of symbolism is in that. But have you heard anything new about the RV lately?
No, oh yeah, that's the burning of the Twin Towers. Yeah, that was on the $20 bill. But they're always changing the sigils on them, right? They're always changing the magic and how it's displayed. But you know who did that? Oh, so that last design that you had, Mike, when you put the money, you fold it in the right way. It's the Twin Towers, burning down. But you know who did that kind of work? Da Vinci. I was watching this documentary on Da Vinci, and this guy is like decoding his work, and he's doing that. He's like taking half of his work and the other half, and he cuts it down the middle, and he somehow mirrors it and puts it together. And there's crazy beings. There's this one that has that crazy being in it that Aleister Crowley used to conjure. Same dude, but in Da Vinci's artwork. So Da Vinci was like, the king of doing this
yeah,
mirrored
very ahead of his time.
expression. Yeah.
What is time?
Well, yeah, that's
And where did he actually come from?
right. Well, and they say that he was gone for like 10 years, like nobody even knew where he was at. And then when he came back, he started developing technology.
He was a Tartarian, and he came back in those 10 years to modern times to get the download of how to do what he wanted to do, and then went back. Time is fluid, and the scale of time that humans are on changes depending on your human time constant. So if we all have a different time constant, the world would appear the same if we're in resonance to each other, but we're actually dealing with different worlds. And if you figure that at microbe level, there's probably hundreds of billions of worlds that each have a very short-lived lifetime. We on this plane have a long-lived lifetime, but no matter what plane we're on, it's always normalized to the 80 years of human existence. And we're at the end of another human cycle of 80 years here in 2020. I expect things to massively change, and that's why the programming's falling apart. It's why we have a Mandela effect. It's why Tartaria has recently been discovered in the last few years, because they're giving us possibilities for the future, and we get to decide which future we take. Looks like we got one with mud floods.
Yeah, a lot of it seems to steer towards that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, some kind of
Bit of
destruction.
grand solar minimum attached to it.
Yeah. I mean, something. Or
You figure that
nuclear warfare. I mean, either way. I mean, that's what, so I'll throw some weird stuff out there, but that's what the Greys always talk about, is that they, had to come back from the future because
well,
they're us in the future. And that's why they're all gray and kind of spindly and have bad digestive, and they're super sensitive physically. But they had to come back for the last, 20 and 30 years to really medically take in tons of different biological material from everything, and mostly humans, because in the near future on this timeline that the planet is destroyed basically, with a nuclear holocaust, and very few people survive it, but the DNA is not good. So,
the
and then
original Time Machine by H.G. Wells, the book, is way different than any of the movies they made. And it also goes into a future where the genetics have been messed up and that people aren't as people anymore.
Yeah.
But it's real interesting to see how they take the stories written in history and in fiction and change them and build them as motifs for the next generation at this scale.
Well, with like Steiner's work, one of the reasons he was murdered and poisoned in like 1926 was because of the different information that he was accessing. I mean, he pretty much one of a kind. Now that I've gone back and I'm studying actually his work, I could see why they would have offed him. They would have gotten rid of him like as fast as possible. But he goes into the future. He talks to the beings, very well educated. He taught doctors back then about nutrition at the turn of the century. He created the biodynamic farming manual, basically, on how down the road, when lots parts of the earth are no longer livable, that using the biodynamic preparations you could restore the soil. And we're starting to find out that some of these preparations, like the barrel prep, actually eat up nuclear radiation. So Russia right now is the #1 biodynamic country, and they're using barrel prep all over Chernobyl area, and they're finding that once they start using it as sprays, because the microbes are just so unbelievably brilliant and amazing and strong, that they eat up nuclear radiation, they eat up heavy metals, they eat up everything. And so now the International Biodynamic Association is doing huge studies, trying to compile tons of information about the barrel preparation so that it can be, used to actually help to assist and clean up, different levels of stuff in the soil. So yeah. Anyway, so
That made me think of what I just shared
yeah.
on the screen.
Yeah. So anyway, so the barrel preparation is something that we make in the ground, and we use different kinds of plants and different things to make it. And the horn manure is pretty stout as well. But so, you spray it, you can use compost tea, you can do all kinds of stuff. I've done like some major restoration of old trees by spraying, horn manure and barrel prep on it that, we're not doing so well. Spray it on the ground, you can't believe what you'll get in like growing food. But so, Steiner put
Yeah,
these preparations
give the
out.
plant what it needs.
Yeah, so Steiner put this stuff out way long before his time because he saw what he saw in the future. And so people that understood biodynamics could actually keep a small utopia in the face of the destruction of the rest of the planet that's going to be laid bare, completely sterile. So he actually saved the people. I look at like this. I think the biodynamic people have a bigger chance of surviving whatever's coming over anybody else, because of the preparations and how to make them, and how to create them. And people that have big biodynamic farms are already growing a lot of these herbs and everything else, and utilizing them for their different properties, and then making the compost and stuff like that, and using water stuff like flow forms, and to charge water, and give the spirit of water back to itself, which was a lot of Schallenberger's work, but we've developed that also in biodynamics. But so if people, want to be able to grow food in the future, you might want to
Um,
study the 8 agricultural lectures and find yourself biodynamic meetings that you can go to, and learn some of this amazing stuff. Plus, it's nutrient dense. It creates the most nutrient dense
so,
plants and medicines.
how do we create the field of Tartarian biodynamics?
Well, I don't think that Tartarians at this phase, whoever they are, they want us to know about a lot of this stuff.
I
I,
think the Tartarians probably used biodynamics back in the day because they were the people.
but they wouldn't have
And
had to, because everything would have been much richer. I was
Well,
just
but
talking to
if
a
you
lady about.
this is a theory, but if you use a star fort to create a mud flood, of which Amsterdam is a prime example, um, You can re-fertilize your fields.
Yeah, well, that's it. Fire, lots of, there's lots of different kind of tactics I'm sure that they used. But the other thing too is like they probably didn't have chemtrails that are really sterilizing soil at a rapid rate. I mean, regardless of what they're using chemtrails for, Mark Steele says they're using them to the heavy metals in the air. They as microwave ways of seeing on different parts of the planet. They can actually see into other people's countries by using, heavy spray. So it's like a military thing. And then they can charge microwave weapons and they can deploy them directly towards those areas if they think there's a threat. And then you have people like Dane Wigington, who's a good friend of mine too, who talk about the different uses of chemtrails. But I mean, basically, the bottom line of what they're doing is they're actually heating the planet up, right? And they're creating sterility and they're killing everything on Earth. Um, so whatever they're using them for is creating really harsh conditions that we may not be able to recover from. And you would have to create like some kind of mud flood to actually come over it to actually fix it. Because I think right now, they're being people are testing on their lands. And I know in Georgia, there's a lady who actively tests and all her trees are like falling over dead. I mean, chemtrails in the US are just unbelievable. Like you couldn't even believe it if you saw it. You just would just die. There are days
Well, I live
that
60 kilometers from Schiphol.
it just shocks me. But anyway, so she said that she's testing now and she's 12 feet deep. And so the chemtrails, the heavy metals now are sterilizing the soil in a way that are killing the roots of trees. So live trees are literally just falling over and then dying because it's killing them from the root system. So, I mean, the only way that you could is if you put like 100 feet of, fresh ash and mud. If you wanted to fix it, I guess maybe it's one of their parts of the mechanics of this reality, the program. They can just hit a button and go, okay, we need to clean that mess up. We got rid of all those people. All
Like
that's
like
gone. Now
like
we'll
George like George Carlin said, Earth made enough plastic. Okay, time to get rid of humans.
yeah, 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 yeah. And then recover with like, molten fortified ash, right? And then, start over again. But that's the thing that, so going back to the Greys, something else that they've talked to me about was that a lot of this stuff on Earth is not real. And a lot of it has been developed at different, or not developed, but placed here at different periods to create theater sets of the beings that they end up manufacturing and putting here as like a petri dish test subjects. So of course there are things that are left over, but they were talking about a lot of some of the pyramids, and they said that a lot of them are kind of fake and phony, and because a lot of them, they didn't do a good job when they actually designed the set during certain periods, and a lot of them don't do what they're supposed to do on other planets where some of these things were mimicked from and then designed here for the next, role play of the theater, for the next, batch of humanoids that they were going to stick on. And so that always sticks out in my mind too. Like, how real is the whole thing? How real is it? And and so they keep designing it as they go. And we must be getting stupider and stupider, right? Because the designs are getting like, worse and worse. Where back in the day, they had to really make some really good designs, right? To really, make
Oh,
people
that
think.
that 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 Tesla truck will sell like hot buns regardless. Doesn't matter how it looks.
Hot buns.
It gets me to thinking, though, as you're describing that it is a stage and they do change the scenario
Yeah.
and we blew them out of the water on the World War scenario because the people won't accept it. So they're trying to whip up enough chaos and energy in the population to get over an energy barrier to take us into some people going into the UN Agenda 2030 world, other people going into the space world. The people who went into the Armageddon world hopefully have already left the planet because that's not going to happen. But we're in a world that I call the living Earth world, and I think there's only a minority of the population that's going to end up on the living Earth world. But if we can get into the idea that the planet is a live cognitive being that can talk to humans on human scale, if the humans can get back down to human scale, I think what we're going to find is that we can talk to not only the planet, but also the water level and maybe the microbe level, and that they're all fractals of the same human existence. We just don't get that from this particular human existence at the moment.
Right. Yeah, no, I kind of like believe not talking but reflecting. It's more of reading Steiner stuff. It's more like, when we're dealing with the water and all this other stuff, where we're reflecting to it. And it's picking up, the minerals and everything else and the air. It's all picking up the reflective um, energy, right? The reflective thoughts, the reflective emotions, the reflective everything that's coming from us to them, right?
Yeah. Hey,
Kind
Mike,
of
what
more less
color
less
code on
communicating and talking, but more reflective, more from internal.
Let me ask Mike a question.
Hmm.
What's the color coding on the Starforts that are there? The yellow, the orange, the blue.
Let me show you. So I made that for people who get my file eventually. Dark blue stars is a city with the walls still visible. A light blue star is a city where the walls were taken down, but evidence of the star still exists. An orange star is the citadel, or the first ring of defense. Green stars is a castle or a fort not tied to a city. These can be elongated in shape. Yellow stars is a redoubt, so that's a fort tied to a city. Red star is a star, no visible traces of a star fort, but confirmed by map research. So I have an old map that proves that there was a star fort in that location at one point. Black star is something that I found to be highly likely to be one, but I don't have a map. I don't have any confirmation, but the location just screams, hey! There's some purple stars. They're noteworthy star-shaped structures, either modern or outstanding. And then I have white stars, which are compass markings that I find just during my searches. You got an example of a white star. Yeah, Havana has one, I think.
I saw one down. Yeah, I saw one down near Miami also.
There you go.
Right now I'm just outside of Miami, so maybe you and I should talk at some point, and you can find me something in this area to go check out.
Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale is south of me. I'm in what's called Delray Beach.
This
Oh,
is
that's an
the
interesting building in Lauderdale.
Yeah, that's really interesting. How many stars? One, two, three, four, five, six.
six-sided
That's the
star.
Yeah, that's the, what do they call it? Sextagon. And the Pharaoh's language, that's the military. That's the
Oh,
military one. That's the So there's the octagon, which are the top of the food chain, the royalty. So that's the octagon, the 8 point, and then oh no, I'm sorry, the 5 point is the military, and then I forget what Dr. Haro said was the six. The six has it also has an animal that represents it too. Um, Let me see if I can go find that. I don't know. I'd probably have to go look through all of Dr. Haras's stuff. Anyway, I'll get off and you can show Lenny some stuff in Miami.
Well, actually, I'm in Delray Beach, which is between Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm.
It's called Fort Lauderdale. That's sort of a dead giveaway to begin with.
Yeah, isn't it?
And so you can bet your bottom dollar that this just sits on where a Starfort once was, but I have no confirmation. I've never seen an old map of Fort Lauderdale, so I just give it a white star because hey, it is a star-shaped building.
Absolutely. It definitely fits the bill.
And then it could have been at this part of Fort Lauderdale in the United States. It's funny, it's exactly the reverse from Europe. The more modern it looks, the bigger the chance it used to be the center of the city and then completely got replaced by high rise.
Well, I was in a high rise yesterday visiting with some other folks. My mom and I went to visit somebody, and the sunset from where I was standing on the ninth floor of a high rise was reflecting off some buildings that I believe were in Fort Lauderdale, but it it was just incredibly bright orange yellow. I was really upset that I hadn't taken my pad and didn't have a camera on me because I definitely would have snapped a few pictures. But it was just an amazing perspective, and the way the sunset hit reflecting off the building just created a huge amount of orange light and basked the city in it.
Definitely have the idea that some of these things are set up with that in mind.
Well, yeah,
You
I
know what I
mean,
mean?
look at that thing by the hotel. I mean, that's new here in Reno. That Nazi sign thing. I
Yeah.
mean, they've been doing this stuff for a long time. I mean, what are they trying to say? I mean, I think it goes back to like Dr. Rosen, him saying that each one and how the design is, and the different points or whatever communicates like a different kind of verbiage to whoever's looking for them, right? Especially people in like secret society. I'm sure that they understand like all the intricate meanings, right, of each and every symbolic location, right? Language of that has numerous symbology. And guess what? I love what Jordan Maxwell says. You're not part of, what has he said, that it's a club and
It's a
you're not
it's a
in it.
big club. You ain't in it. George Carlin.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
I
a
love
big
that.
club, but you ain't in it.
And you ain't in it.
He's the same guy that basically said, well, once the Earth is done making enough plastic, she'll just find a way to get rid of us. Because Earth is doing just fine. It's we who are fucking up.
Why does the earth need plastic?
He doesn't give a reason for that. But that's the one thing that nature can't really produce, plastic. So nature figured out a way to make plastic. Create enough humans. The myth of the overpopulation.
Yes, yes, the
That's
Georgia
that's
Guidestones, and tell everybody to cut down the population down to a good 500 million.
it's so ridiculous. Like we're overpopulated. Can anybody have a look at this here? We can live, all of us. We can comfortably live in Texas.
Yep.
Let's just for a second, like borders of first level. There you go. That's Texas. That
Yeah,
here.
Karen's not here, but she's in Dallas, isn't she?
Yeah,
Mm,
she's in Dallas.
yeah,
I'm sure that Dallas has, um, well, Dallas has the worst. Well, okay, let's say New York. when I had to drive through there, had the worst, most sinister, awful, terrifying energy that I think I've ever felt in the United States. And so would never ever go to the New York area ever again. And then Dallas had the second most worst energy. I was had this terrifying like undercurrent of energy when I was in Dallas, and I had to go to school up there. I had to relocate for a certain program, the brain reboot thing that I do, Lenny.
Yeah.
And so the main school was in Dallas, and I couldn't live there. I couldn't sleep. The energy was so awful and intense, and it made me like nauseous. And LA is the same way. LA has the same kind of energy, but Dallas was really bad, really high up there. But so I'd have to go to Austin,
It's
drive
just
on the
another.
deadliest highway in America, 35 up to from Austin to Dallas. And then I'd be in Dallas for a week, which I wouldn't sleep at all, and I'd have to do the hands-on program. Then I would go back to Austin, and then I would do, 3 weeks of papers and reading books and, all of the school part, and then go back and forth. But yeah, Dallas has to have major, 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 major secret society stuff going on there because it's
Cities
been
are
a
designed to make you ill.
yeah,
By
no, I
now, I think they completely reversed that on us. Cities were designed to heal, and we didn't need to be there for long times. And now cities are designed to make you sick, and everybody is herded towards them at the most rapid pace possible.
yeah, no, yeah.
Empty the countryside. I'll go to the city. Here's where you get your job.
Well, the thing is, like, I'm always kind of astonished how people don't notice these things, and I'm just kind of an over noticer, kind of a lot more sensitive, I think, than most people. And but like I avoid places like the plague that have nasty energy and that make me sick. But a lot of the big cities, especially in the United States, they have ruthless type energy. Like, get if you don't, radiate on kind of a sleep or darker level, you have to run for your life. Kind of a feeling. Run for your life.
Get the out of here.
I know. Or you're going to die. I mean, seriously, the
No,
first
I can confirm. Like my girl, she lives in London, and before she lived in London, she lived off grid in Portugal for 6 years.
well, why would she move to London? Why would you give up off-grid living? Ugh.
Hey, situations, circumstances.
Oh, damn. Sad. It's
Ah,
very
we're
sad.
looking at getting her back to it, me included.
Well, good. It'll be good. That's where I'm headed is like big time off-grid living. Want to create like a huge parcel of land and do big scale land restoration and have like a big great biodynamic farm and save as many plants and seeds and animals that I possibly can. That's my goal.
I'm a total plant nerd.
Yeah, I love plants.
I go 60 in the house.
Holy cow, you're a super nerd.
The
But
house is wherever I can stick plants, I'll stick them.
yeah, well, that's a good sign. I think those people like that have these plant relationships and are going to be we're going to be key for the future. Key.
Learn how to grow things. It's really, really important. It's really, really important.
Yeah, no, serious. No, and I want to get land too because I'm working with some native people who have native seeds that a lot of these seeds have not ever been grown by somebody who's white. And so I got
That's
tested
amazing.
um, like a couple of summers ago. I got tested, like I got sent seeds and then I had to, grow them and had to have a relationship with them. And these ones they're like computer chips and they actually look like they have barcodes on them. And if you go to the traditions where these seeds come from, to the story, that shows extraterrestrial that came here and gave them to the native people to carry on to the future, and that these seeds will actually resolve once planted into the ground. They change the whole atmosphere of everything that they're in. And I'll tell you what, I was out in the middle of the desert. I have I have the journey of growing these seeds a little bit at my friend's house way out in the desert, and there would you couldn't believe the things that these plants manifested into their reality. I mean, we're out in the total middle of the desert. The only water they get is from me. And I would wake up and I'd have to walk through clouds of little dragonflies to get to the garden. I mean, just like unbelievable things. You just couldn't even imagine that these native seeds, especially the corn, the really old stuff that has the barcodes and stuff like that on it. And in the old days, the tribes would wear tattoos on their chin that showed the barcodes on the seeds to each other. So when they talked to each other, because the seed was more valuable than human life, it was everything. It was their protector. It took care of them. It provided food for them. It was money. It was their lifeblood. It's the reason why a lot of tribes married together. It was everything. And so a lot of tribes were called like they would their corns would be called chin corn, which means that they were like original corn because of the barcodes that were on them. And Stephen Smith, who I have on my show regularly, God, he's a brilliant little guy. He's like 22, and he has the largest collection of native corn seed in the world. And that tribes have actually invited him to come because he's part native to take some of the seed because they can't carry it forward and they need somebody to carry it forward. In some cases, there's only like 20 seeds left. So he actively works on trying to find people to do large outgrowths to return the seed not only back to the earth, but back to the people, right? For true sovereignty. Because even heirloom is genetically altered, right? So it's not the pure form. So it's just kind of an interesting thing dealing with this corn. And when I first got the seed package, the first thing that actually happened was that my friend was sending me the seed package of all the different native seeds to grow. And I had forgotten that he was going to be sending them and I didn't know when. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I thought it was this mosquito trying to bother me. I could hear it going zzz. So I got up and it was in the dark and I was trying to like swat the mosquito off or whatever from eating my face. And then all of a sudden it wasn't a mosquito. It's all these native people, and there's women and men. There was like some drums, and they were like, "Ay, kind of like I'm terrible. I'm a terrible singer, so I'm sorry if I botched that. But it was kind of like around that theme, and I totally was like, "Oh my God, like what the hell is going on? Like where are these people at?" I went outside trying to find them, and then the next day I called a native friend of mine and I said, "Hey, I had something strange going on last night, and this is what was going on." And she said, "Oh yeah." She said, "Well, didn't Greg put the seeds in the mail?" And I said, "I don't know." Well, the next day I got the seeds. So I called her back and I was like, "So I got the seeds." I said, "What do you think about, the songs and stuff?" She said, "Oh, it's the ancestors that are connected to the seeds that were preparing you and preparing the way for you to receive them. So they're watching you, they're going to be working with you, so you better, you better be good. You better do the right thing here." And then it was like a whole summer of craziness. So as soon as I got the seed, the other people on the land went bat shit nuts. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And it just kept escalating. Brought the crazy out in white people. Seriously brought the crazy out. It's so bad that they were like fighting over nothing, like crazy stuff. And then once I planted the seeds, then there was this huge fight and one of the people had to leave the land and it was really explosive. And I just kept watering the plants and just letting them do the work. And I just watched them clear miles and miles and miles of energy. And what was more mind-blowing is that the corn seed that I grew, this specific one, native corn, they looked like little red clear crystals when I planted the seeds. And as they grew, they actually took over everything in their vicinity. They imprinted everything in their vicinity. So there was these marijuana plants because my friend was growing his medical weed, and those plants, when they started pollinating, actually interacted with his weed and created a whole other weed. So a native friend of mine came, and she was looking at everything. She came out and brought her drum to sing, to the plants, to do some Lakota earth medicine songs for them. Because I'm terrible. I botch that stuff up. I'm just really terrible. I'm not musically inclined ceremonially. So she came out, and so she would periodically come and pray for them, and native tongue, which was, they loved that. Let me just tell you, you could feel it. They loved it. But she looked at the marijuana plants and she said, "Oh my God, the corn has totally imprinted itself," because the corn had this really dark purple stalks, and the cover was really dark purple on some of them, and you could see the dark purple that the weed plants now had on just the stems, and it was the same dark purple as the stem on the corn stalk. So you could see how
Yeah,
this mother corn, this ancient corn with this special 5,000-year-old DNA, literally took over and changed everything in its field for miles and miles and miles, and changed everything in that energy field. It was like, it was actually shocking. I had to, once I planted it and it came up, man, it just started shifting all kinds of stuff. It brought the crazy out in people, brought it all up to the surface. They either clear it or explode.
nah, that makes total sense. Like manipulating the taste of your fruit is uh, done in similar ways.
Yeah, so anyway, it was just
If you want your blueberries to be really rich and tasty, make sure they have a peat log at the bottom of their root system, because it's a swamp plant and not a dirt or a clay or whatever. It's a swampy plant, so it wants peat. If you want really good blueberries, add peat.
get some peat.
Yep.
Pete is
Uh,
on speed dial.
if you want your cannabis to be sweet tasting, offer it fruits. Offer it fruits, literally. Sweet fruits, and your
Yeah,
cannabis will be sweet.
feed it something natural, right? Instead of
Yep.
man-made, for sure. Yeah, no. Yeah, and also I had all these, when I do a big area, I do a support garden. So I had tulsi seed that came from India. I had sorghum that came from India. Had all these really old native seeds that flowered and all kinds of stuff around them. So those were between the weed plants and the native vegetable plants, right? But it was crazy. It was some crazy stuff. Like, it was full on a crazy, crazy, crazy journey. And like I said, those are all on my YouTube channel from a couple summers ago. Just kind of the, general of the experiences that I was going through. But yeah, unbelievable, unbelievable journey. Healing too, huge healing. Just I underwent like a huge, huge shift in consciousness and what's possible, what the potentiality is. Okay, so what are we looking at now?
Fields in the middle of nowhere. I'm just looking for forts.
That's all you care about. I just always looking for forts. If I'm here, I'm on Google Earth. I'm just looking.
An idle mind is the devil's playground, they say. So if you're not doing something and you're there, you might as well be doing something. Hey, we're
That's
getting
it, right?
close to the top of the hour, right?
What's that?
It's almost time to be done, isn't it?
Yep, I was gonna give it just till 20 after, and then I've gotta hit the road. Got a busy day today. It's like Monday for me.
Oh,
I know. But it's good.
it,
I get to start with consciousness on Sunday mornings, right? So it starts my Monday good.
I was up last night till 3 hunting forts with Victor, And Andreas joined at a certain point, and he recorded the last, I think, 30 to 45 minutes of that. And that'll be premiering on YouTube in, I guess, 2 hours, a little under 2 hours.
Oh, awesome. That's
It's not
great.
suited for children, though.
Was there a lot of
There was
bad
a whole lot
language?
of bad language.
Oh.
It was late at night, and I had a whole bunch of cannabis, and I was just tired. And these
Ooh.
guys just kept me going.
I had a whole bunch of canvas.
Yeah, I'm normally inclined to smoke indica, and I had nothing but sativa, and that makes me really high, so I lose the plot.
Yeah, no, I that whole like large THC stuff does not work well with me anymore. I like the stuff that has a huge amount of CBDs in it. Recently, I just got some that has like very little, and I go to the dispensary, why not? I don't want to buy street weed anymore that's sprayed with stuff I don't even know what's on it. But this one, it has, it has like 12% CBD and only like 6% THC, and I just love it. It's like perfect for me because it gets rid of the pain, gets rid of the stress, the major panic and anxiety. And
It's medicine, right?
yeah, and I just function like killer. Just get all this kind of work done. My mind, I still have my mind. I just love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And it doesn't make me hungry. That's the other part. It doesn't have the hungry mungry in it.
No, I like my mild stuff.
Me too. I like the medicine side. It's hard for Americans because, Americans have been buying street weed for so long. And then, only in the
But we
last few
buy.
years.
Don't don't be mistaken. It may be semi-legal in the Netherlands, but we still buy street weed because it's illegal to grow weed in the Netherlands.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. You guys in America are now at this point way ahead of what we used to be.
Well, this is in Nevada. This is what happened. We went from being like the last state in the United States that was zero tolerance for anything. A seed could get you 25 years in state jail. So, I smoked a lot of weed in my life, but, you know, always was hiding under the radar, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
And then, oh,
that's the difference. In the Netherlands, it's like nobody cares if you smoke weed.
yeah, well, I mean, everybody smokes weed here, but, nobody carried it. You didn't smoke it and drive. You know what I mean? You didn't have it on your possession in case you would get searched. You're just kind of really careful about it.
Hmm.
But then it went from zero tolerance to legal, not just legal, but recreational legal. We didn't even get the medical. I mean, you could get a medical card a long time ago to do it with restricted plants and where those plants could be, blah, 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 blah. But we went to dispensaries where it was recreational legal. And you should have
Right?
seen the look
Because
on people's faces. Like people here didn't want to go into the dispensaries because they were paranoid that they were, agent government traps just to see if you smoked weed and you had possession of weed. I mean, people here were super paranoid
That makes
about
sense, right?
illegal
You go from
dispensaries.
illegal to completely legal in one go, you will have a whole bunch of paranoid people going, What just happened?"
Yeah, well, and that now there's just dispensaries popping up all over the place. Like you couldn't believe it, just in areas like on the corner of city blocks. And we were in the one that's around the area here. And we had to go back twice the day before Thanksgiving because it was going to be closed on Thanksgiving. And that place was packed, packed, packed. We had to go back to get some more stuff because they were almost sold out of it. So we went back and got a little bit more of this one weed that I like with the CBDs. But they literally, within 5 hours, sold out of everything that they had.
it's
Everything.
one of those things where the whole system of dispensaries is set up to get the disposable income of people. And at this point, where people don't have disposable income, the weed smokers will prioritize getting weed, and the powers that be hunger for their money. So
Hmm. I totally
Homegrown
agreed there.
strength
But
to
you know,
get.
this is the thing is like I like having a dispensary to go to. You know, I like being able to walk. I'll spend extra money to be able to walk into a store that I can buy weed based on my mood. Like I need to sleep, I get the sleep weed. I need, stress weed, I get the stress weed. You know, I need this weed, I get this weed. So, and they have in the dispensaries, they have everything. They have oils, they have tinctures, they have salves that you could put on for pain relief or whatever else. They even have animal, products, for animals. So, I mean, and a lot of the dispensaries that I go into, they use only local people to make all of these medicines and all this stuff. Very few of the dispensaries are corporatized, where they're only buying from another state from a corporation who's making a CBD, THC oil. So I go to the mom and pop ones that, everything's handmade, by somebody in the local area. I mean, that's what I like about the dispensary. And so you have all these people who are making, like there's this really good brand called like Tahoe Nessie or something like that, weed brand. And it's because the people that are growing it up right up at Lake Tahoe. So they, incorporate Tahoe into it, which I think is cool.
Integrity Farms.
Yeah, so I don't mind going into the dispensary at all. I don't complain about it. Plus I can get exactly what I want to get.
Now we
And
have coffee shops. That's the whole weird deal with our law. A
yeah,
coffee shop is legally allowed to sell weed up to 5 grams per person per day. They are legally allowed to have 500 grams of the product in house at any given time. But delivering said product to the coffee shop is an illegal act.
oh, that's crazy. Well, I had a friend of mine, I think it was in the Netherlands, and big business trip. She's an international like immunologist, but not licensed. She had a lab in Germany that, the government stole all of her stuff that she was working on. But she had one of her big clients was in the Netherlands, and he used to take her to a cafe, and she used to get a hash sampler.
Mm-hmm.
She said that was her favorite thing because we don't really can't buy that stuff here, at least in the dispensaries in Nevada, any hash. But she said she loved going to the Netherlands because she would get every day. She'd go down to the cafe and get a hash sampler.
Hash is a bit limited. Hash usually comes from here, which is Kush in India. It comes from Lebanon, the Middle East, or Morocco.
Yeah, she said there was a place where you could get a little nougat of each one.
Yeah, I
The
know.
hash sampler.
That's an Amsterdam thing.
Oh yeah.
That's definitely an Amsterdam thing. They did change the law up a bit a couple of years ago. You used to be able to buy just however much money you had in your pocket, right? And they changed that up to 5 grams per person per day. Now you can easily circumvent that by visiting 3 coffee shops. It's not like they're not allowed to sell you their 5 grams, but the shop I frequent, I had it a couple of months back. My buddy asked, "Can you bring some for me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, but I'm getting my regular amount of 5 grams, so I'll see if I can get some for you."
If there's anything extra.
And they were like, "No, I can't do that." So, and I'm like, "What if I return here in a couple of hours?" Yeah, well, we will have different shifts, so a different crew. No problem, but I can't legally sell you another gram of weed. If you walk out the door and you walk back in, cops come, and there you go.
That's hysterical. So you could go every
That's
shift and
ridiculous.
buy your maximum.
It's absolutely bonkers.
But the thing is,
Welcome
at
to the
least you have a
Netherlands.
place that you can go and buy it. I mean, think about how many places you just couldn't get anything like that, right? I We don't have cafes. I'm waiting for a cafe. I would love to be able to go sit and have a coffee or a chai or whatever, a
Yeah,
snack,
on the
and have a
downside, everything
have
you
a
buy in a coffee shop is street weed.
oh
You don't know the origins. If you have a responsible owner, like the coffee shop I go to, I've been going there for almost 20 years. I know that owner, and he's really proud of what he sells. He tests everything. And if he
I
has
want
the
that job.
slightest hint of a suspicion that there's any chemicals being used, it's like, no, I don't want to buy your product. Take it somewhere else. Bye.
Yeah, that's good. That's the reason I like dispensaries is because I want to make sure that it doesn't have any mold on it, doesn't have any,
Yeah,
stuff
but
on it or anything like that, right?
like in the Netherlands, it's illegal.
Right.
So you don't have that. So if a coffee shop owner just buys a big bag of crappy weed that's been sprayed and weighed down and he doesn't care, you end up with crappy products. Whereas a dispensary is sort of more controlled, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, another thing too is like if you have, HIV or you have, some of these other issues and you smoke weed that has mold or fungus on it, you will kill yourself. I mean, you can't have those kinds of allergens in anything and in your system any way, shape, or form. I mean, it would cause death. So, the thing is like if people are buying stuff that have autoimmune system type, weird things, they have to make sure that the product is clean all the way. Pesticides would be super dangerous for somebody with chemical sensitivity.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So, all right. Anyway, we're at the end of the Think Lab, but the Think Collab,
I
and
think
we've had I know we've had Michael on and Lenny and Bridgette. And so I'm going to stop the record and we'll get this up on the Think collab probably tomorrow. So, anyway, I wish everybody out there a happy week. And we got some really good feedback from some very awake people that I know who are watching the collab every week. So, they're very excited about stuff that we're talking about.
that's good to hear. Very nice.
Yeah, so we're building a fan club.
Oh, exciting.
I know, I know. All right, thanks, Mike, for joining
All
us.
right.
Really appreciate it. All right, Lenny, have a great day. We'll talk to everybody soon. Bye.